Do you ever feel like your finger picking isn't as smooth as you would like it to be? Maybe your notes sound uneven, your fingers get tangled, and there's just that lack of flow to your sound. Well, you're not alone. In this video, you learn about 7 common finger picking mistakes that could be holding back your finger picking. Better yet, you're going to learn how to either avoid them, or if you're making them, how to fix them. Some of these mistakes even trip up experienced players, but if we address them at the fundamental level and start to employ and implement tactics and strategies to fix them, your finger picking is going to sound much more natural, it's going to flow, and it's going to feel effortless. Before we get into the video, if you could like this video right now, I'd really appreciate it. It'll push it out there into the world of YouTube for others to find. And if you like the content I release each week on the channel, I would love it, if you haven't already, to subscribe. All right, let's get to it. Mistake number 1 is your finger picking hand position. I see people get this wrong all the time. And while there are, of course, variations depending on what you're doing, there's no one exact way. We all have different sized hands, and sometimes we're finger picking in a certain style. So all those things considered, there are some fundamental things that are really important. We don't want to basically finger pick from the angle our hand is at when we're flat picking. That's what a lot of people do. They learn with the plectrum, then they want to do some finger picking, and they don't change anything about their picking hand. To get your hand in the right position, it's very simple. You're going to take your 3 fingers, I, M, A, and your thumb, and you're going to place them all on the 3rd string of the guitar, side by side. So the thumb's in front of the 3 fingers. That's really important. And that's pretty much the only way you can have the hand when all the fingers and the thumb are on the same string. Then you take the thumb and you move it to the bottom string. You keep your index finger on the string it's on, the 3rd string. The middle moves to the 2nd string, and your ring finger moves to the top string. When you do that, you cannot be anything else but have your hand in the right position. Again, right? 3 fingers on the 3rd string, just lightly gripping the string. The thumb goes in front of those 3 fingers, and then you take the thumb, move it to the bottom string, index stays where it is, middle goes to the 2nd string, ring finger goes to the 1st string. When you look down from your viewpoint, you'll see your thumb will be at basically a 45-degree angle to the string, and your thumb and index finger will cross over. They'll make a little bit of an X, if you like, from your perspective. And our hand is nice, and it's in a natural position. It's not glued down to the guitar like this. Sometimes we want to have a collapsed wrist when finger picking, so that's a more stylistic thing for certain approaches. But here, just to get the basic positioning, we have our hand just, it's not pushing right out, it's just up above the strings, and 3 fingers and the thumb are on their respective strings. That puts your hand in the correct position. And if you just police that by doing it at the beginning of a session, maybe check it during the session, and then reinforce it at the end of a session, and certainly correct it anytime you see it do anything else. But that will become the natural way your hand will want to approach the strings when finger picking guitar. Mistake 2 is a bit of a contentious one in the world of finger picking, and that is resting your pinky on the body of the guitar. Is this right? Is it wrong? Is it a mistake? Well, not really. I used to think, I was in the sort of camp of don't rest your pinky. And that's fine if you don't want to rest your pinky on the body of the guitar. But if you do, there's a bit of a caveat here, because I see this a lot. When people do, they put their pinky down on the body of the guitar and they push in with a lot of tension, and it kind of sits there and anchors down on the fretboard, and then your finger movement is restricted because of that. So if you're going to rest your pinky on the body of the guitar when you finger pick, you want to have a very light touch. You're not pressing in at all. Pressing in is not the term. You're just lightly brushing against the body of the guitar as you finger pick. Okay, gives you a bit of stability. You can sort of feel where your hand's in the right spot. This is fine to do, okay? But the big caveat again, let me be really, really clear. Don't push in. If you push in, even just a little bit, try it, you'll feel the tension. You'll feel your arm flex up. And if you keep it there anchored down, then you're restricted. Sometimes you need to move across the strings a little bit. So if you're resting your pinky when you do that, it should follow with your hand, not be sort of left behind, and then you end up with tension again, okay? So really, really important. Now, there are times where you either don't rest your pinky or you do rest your pinky, but there are times where I will and I won't. So it's horses for courses. If I'm running up a chord like this, I'm not going to rest my pinky. That's going to sort of restrict my movement. Same with sort of tremolo stuff. I'm not going to rest my pinky again, it restricts my movement. So some techniques require a floating pinky, I believe. Others certainly fine to rest it on the body of the guitar, but just be aware of that caveat of not pushing it in and anchoring it down. We want to just have optimal tension because that will equal nice, efficient movements and effortless playing. Mistake number 3 is excess movement in your picking hand. So when we finger pick, generally speaking, it starts from the base of the knuckle of each finger. It's not an arm movement. There might be some times where we want to move to get a bit of a percussive sort of feel. So of course there's going to be exceptions to this, but generally speaking, when you finger pick, it's all from the base of the knuckle, right? We don't want to sort of pick and have this, this thing of pulling away from the strings essentially and adding in this excess movement. All right, that's tension, that's going to slow you down. It's going to certainly interrupt the flow of your sound. Something that you can do to help prevent this and to police this, if you like, is to do what's called like a full finger plant. So what that means is, let's say I'm going to pick up an E chord here, just an E open chord. It means to put all your fingers, thumb and fingers, on their respective strings. So let's say I'm plucking the root note on the 6th string, then I'm going to pluck the 3rd, 2nd and 1st strings of the chord. So everything is down before you play a single note, lightly touching, and then play each note of the chord. So you end up with, at the end, no fingers, all thumb on the strings. Then you put them all down on the strings again, their respective strings, and you pluck one off against the other until you once again have no fingers on the string. Then you go and do that again. So this isn't how you play per se, but it's a training exercise in not just minimal movement, but also accuracy. Because if you're sitting on the string, it's hard to hit the wrong string if you're pre-preparing the note. Now, I have a video that goes into much more detail on this finger planting technique that's hugely beneficial for so many things with your playing, your accuracy, your efficiency, your speed, even your musicality. And I'm going to link to it in the top right corner of this video now. So you could bookmark that for later. That'll go into more details. But it's really important that you only pick from the base of the knuckle. Now, the other thing here that we'll add is that we don't want to pick away from the string. Even if we have minimal movement, we don't want to sort of claw at the string and pick upward away from the string. When you pick from the base of the knuckle, the finger that plucks the string moves inward towards the palm of your hand, right? It's this sort of motion. If you do a one-hand clap, it's not going to be that full range when it plucks the string, but this just gives you the basic idea. We don't want to pick up off of the strings in a claw-like way. I see that a lot. It's picking and following through towards the palm of your hand with each finger that plucks the string. So when you're gripping the strings, planting your fingers down on the string and you play, the thumb will just follow through. But when you play, the index is towards the palm of your hand. And then likewise with your middle and of course with your third as well. It's not going to hit the palm of your hand, but it's going to be moving in that direction. And then you want to relax it back to the string. This is a little bit of an extension to what we're really talking about here, but in terms of the tension, if you keep the fingers sort of bent when you pluck the string, there's more tension when I do that with my fingers than that. There's more tension there versus there. So when you pluck the string, it's good to relax it back. Okay, so in this case, we are planting the hand down, but we're going to relax the finger back to the string. It's not really two separate movements, it's one movement, right? It's plucking through and relaxing back to the string. You might find the ring finger a little trickier to do. This is tension control, having optimal tension. A lot of people play with a lot of tension when you're plucking away from the string, even if you're moving just from the knuckle. There's a lot, you can see the tension, you can certainly hear it too. Okay, so there are a couple of things to keep in mind in terms of excess movement and keeping things nice and efficient and relaxed, because that will equal nice, fluent finger picking. Mistake 4 is thinking you've got to pluck a certain string with a certain finger. I hear this all the time and often have the question of which finger plays what string. Well, depends what you're doing, right? But the reference, the starting point is that the thumb will play the lower 3 strings, the bass strings. Your index is going to play the 3rd string. Your middle will play the 2nd. Your ring finger will play the 1st string. But that's just a starting point. right? There's no absolutes here. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you want to hear as well. You get a different tone with each finger. If I pluck this top string with my index, it will sound different than my middle and different with my ring finger. I don't know how that comes across on the video, but there is a difference in the tone that you get. So the finger you use, whilst you want to keep it nice and efficient and logical, may be decided by the tone that you want. So for example, if I'm playing something like this, and I'm using my index and middle fingers to pluck the top two strings, that's going to have a different tone than if I use my middle and ring fingers. Hopefully you can hear it. If you can't, trust me, there is a difference. It's subtle, but it certainly makes a difference. So that could be one example. And in the first example, I was using my index and middle on the top two strings. That would be breaking the rule that people seem to think there exists. But there is no real rule. There's just a reference point. And from there, you make the choices depending on what you're doing. Some people don't use the ring finger to finger pick. I mean, there's great finger pickers who didn't. So I'm sure in the comments we'll hear about Mel Travis and other players who just played with one or two fingers. And absolutely, they're incredible players. But for me, if I've got three fingers, I'm going to use them. There's just more you can do with three fingers versus two. So I think, in my opinion at least, if you don't use your ring finger in your finger picking, I think that's a little bit of a mistake, or at least a missed opportunity. Okay, some people leave it because it feels awkward to do. It seems to lack the coordination, at least initially, of the index and middle. But of course that's going to happen if you only use the index and middle. You know, examples of where we don't play with the thumb on the lower three strings and the index, ring, middle fingers on their respective strings would be things like, you know, running up a chord with a little banjo roll or back down. Okay, I've got the thumb playing on higher strings there, I've got the fingers playing on lower strings there. Tremolo picking, right, that sort of thing. So my thumb's running right up and down the strings while my index and middle fingers play on the top string. So there's no, don't get caught in the mindset that you've got to use the fingers for specific strings. It depends on what you're doing. This is a great starting point, so that's where I start people with finger picking, but then we branch out from there and see the possibilities. Mistake number 5 is pretty simple. It's going to be brief, but many people make this error, trying to finger pick songs that are way beyond your current level of playing. Now, there is nothing wrong with a challenge. I'm all up for a challenge, and it depends on your focus and determination and all that sort of stuff as to how much of a challenge you might be willing to take on. But if we don't challenge ourselves, we don't get better. But within a certain range of where we are currently at with our finger picking skills. So I see people trying to play Chet Atkins tunes or Joe Pass chord melodies, arrangements. And I mean, Joe Pass and Chet Atkins didn't start with those arrangements that they were creating, later in their life. It's ridiculous when you think about it that we try and tackle something like that from day one. All you're going to do is get discouraged, get false beliefs that you're just not cut out to fingerpick, and you're going to quit. So it's really important to find suitable tunes. If you're not sure, a teacher can help you with this. This is where a teacher is great. They can give you the right content at the right time. It's great these days. We can go to YouTube. All the stuff is there, but we can also just get into a bit of a rut, if you like, by trying to do things that are beyond our level. And when we try and do that, we also instill bad technique trying to do those things, all the things that I've been talking about to this point in time. So start with things that are within your wheelhouse. If you're not sure, a teacher can help. You might find some videos that help as well, of course. And it's also not a bad idea to take something and simplify it. So if you've got a tune you love by Chet Atkins, is there a way that you could simplify that? Or are there simpler arrangements of that same tune existing already? Start with tunes that are, again, within your wheelhouse. Fingerpicking is challenging. We don't need to make it more challenging than what it already is. Mistake number 6 is playing without any dynamics. Now, dynamics, typically everyone thinks of volume, and that certainly is a big element of dynamics, but there are other things that will help you play more musically, more dynamically. The first thing is you do need to get the mechanics down to something. The chord shapes, the execution, the fingerpicking, these, elements, the techniques, that comes first. But after, then we need to make it sound more dynamic. Okay, so I will talk about volume here today, just know that it extends beyond that. I also have a video that goes into more detail with finger picking dynamics. I'll link to that in the top right corner now that you can bookmark and check out later. But what I would say here to practice your dynamics in terms of volume is to find your sort of default level. You know, don't try and pick really hard, but if I just pick on this E chord, you know, that's about my default level of volume. I wouldn't want to play everything at that level because again, it would not be dynamic, it'd just be this flat line. So you've got that sort of middle area, and then see how soft you can pick. Because we can pick very softly, and sometimes we need to. And then see how loud you can pick. When you go loud, don't change the technique. Don't be pulling away to try and get louder sounds. Just keep everything as it is. If the volume was down, it shouldn't look really any different to when I'm plucking very soft, or just my default volume, right? So you got sort of those three levels. You've got this one, very soft, even softer. You got your kind of default level, and then you got the louder. Okay. Now in between each of those levels are the sort of micro levels of volume that you can access. And all this brings a more musical sound to your playing. Dynamics is one of those things that will immediately make a difference to your sound, immediately make it sound way more pro than someone playing without dynamics. It's one of the key signs of an amateur player is when there's no dynamics. Again, when you're learning a piece, it's not the time to think of the dynamics, but once it's in your fingers, now it's time to shift to that. We've got those three levels. You could then blend them and build your dynamic range. So kind of like turning up the volume on a radio, showing my age, or bringing it down. So if I did that on the E chord, and let's just do a finger picking pattern. So I'm just going to pick up and down the chord, okay? And I'm going to go from my soft volume, I'm going to gradually increase to my default, to loud, and back down again. You could spread this out over a longer period of time. I'll condense it a little bit here, but you'll get the idea. So we start very soft. We just want to gradually increase the volume, like we're turning it up gradually. The higher end now. And then starting to bring it down. You're just accessing all those different levels that you could do at any given time to make what you're playing sound more musical. Okay, so that's one exercise you can do just to tap into the different volumes that you can pluck the strings at. We can go much deeper into that. I encourage you to check out the video I've linked in the top right corner regarding finger picking dynamics, but that will be a good start, even just getting your head in that space once you've got the mechanics down to something, because not everything is equal, okay, in terms of the volume at which you pluck the notes, and that's what makes it sound more dynamic and more musical. And mistake number 7, this appears on pretty much any mistake YouTube type video I make. Can you guess what it is? I bet you can, because in my experience of teaching for more than 30 years now, this is the number one thing people do all the time, and I catch myself doing this too, and that is playing too fast too soon, trying to play the speed of the song and trying to sort of fast track that, and then all your technique goes out the window. You play with a hell of a lot more tension, and all you're really achieving is playing slower, not so fluently, etc. The other component to this is also not breaking things down into smaller enough parts. Sometimes if it's a challenging tune, you have to break it down beat by beat, not just bar by bar, beat by beat, and then start to put it back together. So certainly breaking things down into small portions. Just take a little bit. If you do that, you will play accurately, because it's only a little small thing you got to do at a single time. And it's easier to memorize things like that too, which is also very important to do when learning tunes. So the speed thing. So we want to play very slowly. And the general thing I find is that if you think you're playing slow enough, halve that speed and now you're playing slow enough, right? It's a lot slower than what a lot of people think. There's no one magic number on the metronome to play to, and I'm not saying play to a metronome here, in fact don't, but you're going to play very slowly, slow enough so that things aren't only accurate, but they also feel effortless, right? Of course, when we're first learning something, it might not feel effortless so much, but it feels easy, like there's no excess tension in your body anywhere, okay? You're nice and relaxed. Now, if you play even just a little bit too quick for where you're at with your playing or a particular tune, there's going to be more tension rather in your playing, and we're going to hear that. I'm certainly going to see it, but more importantly, going to hear it in your playing. And it's going to interrupt your flow and your fluency with your finger picking. So one technique that can help is commentate your playing. So if you're picking up and down a chord, I'll just keep it really simple here, and you need to do it slowly, then, my thumb picks the 5th string, my index picks the 3rd, my middle's going to pick that 2nd string, my ring picks the top, middle back on the 2nd string, index on the 3rd, thumb on the 5th. Because I had to commentate that, I played it very slowly. And sometimes you have to play that slowly or even slower. Obviously, I'm doing something very simple here just to convey the message here. Okay, so I won't go on about it, even though I could go on my little rant. But to be honest, I do this too, and I've got to remind myself. So it's okay if you catch yourself playing fast because you've caught yourself, and then you can do something about it. I catch myself often trying to do things I'm learning too quickly, and I have to tell myself, slow it down or break it up into smaller pieces. So really, really important. If you do that, many of the issues that come up in people's playing won't come up for you because you'll avoid them because you're working and getting something correct at a fundamental level.
Want to finally get fingerpicking down once and for all? Whether you're brand new to fingerpicking or have tried before and failed, the Ultimate Beginner Fingerpicking Guitar course was made for you. This is a fully structured step-by-step program that takes you from the very basics through to confident, fluent fingerpicking without the overwhelm or fluff. Each lesson walks you through highly focused drills, exercises, and musical pieces, many of which you will know, all carefully sequenced to build your skills gradually. You get high quality videos, MP3s, and PDFs in every lesson, providing you with everything you need to build rock solid technique, develop great feel, and make real progress you can actually hear. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start fingerpicking the way you've always dreamed, then click the link in the description below this video and check out the Ultimate Beginner Fingerpicking Guitar course today.
Let me know in the comments what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see in future videos. I'd love to hear from you. A lot of the suggestions that come through do become videos in the future on the channel, so don't be shy, drop us a line, let us know what you would like to see. If you like this video, then hit that like button, and if you haven't already and you like the content that I release each week, I'd love it if you could subscribe to the channel. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, thank you so much for sticking around and watching this video. I really do appreciate it very, very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.